this virtual platform. This is Jayanto Kolita, SOD Department of Education, Masbat College. Respected resource persons, esteemed participants from different parts of the country, and respected principal sir, MC College, Borpeta. Today we are going to start our this webinar. This webinar is jointly organized by Department of Education, Masbat College, Masbat, Udalguri, and PG Department of Anthropology, MC College, Borpeta. On the topic, the present pandemic-induced crisis, understanding from an anthropological perspective. I request all the esteemed participants and co-host to mute their mic because we are going to start with our national anthem, please. As per agenda, now I request Dr. Prakash Sharma, Principal, MC College, Borpeta, to deliver his welcome speech as well as inaugural speech. May I request Dr. Prakash Sharma, Principal, MC College, to deliver his welcome speech. Please, sir, over to you. Sir, please unmute yourself first. Okay.
Now, have you heard me?
Yes, yes, sir.
Oh, okay. I can proceed. Can I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sure, sure.
Okay. Respected Principal Sir, Masbat College, Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sharma. Probably he will remain absent today. Honorable Dr. Dipen Basbarua Sir, he is our invited resource person. Professor Basbarua Sir is the head of the Department of Anthropology, Guwahati University. Professor Basbarua Sir, he is very familiar to us, very close to us, and well-wisher of our institution. Respected HOD, Department of Education, Masbat College, a very young and dynamic personality, Mr. Jayanto Kolita, is the convener of this webinar. Mr. Sarat Chandra Bhuiya, the HOD of the Postgraduate Department of Anthropology, MC College, Borpeta. At this moment, I'd like to share a good news with you that we have got permission to open PG course in the subject anthropology right from this year. Basbarua Sir is present here. Actually, he is instrumental. He has helped us a lot in this regard.
Congratulations.
Thanks, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, students and participants, very good morning to you all. First of all, being the principal of MC College Borpeta, I would like to personally welcome all of you who have joined in this program, not only from inside of our country, but also from abroad. This program is organized by Postgraduate Department of Anthropology of MC College Borpeta in collaboration with Education Department of Masbat College, Uralguri district. Professor Dipen Basbarua, who is well-known scholar in anthropology, will deliver talk on the topic, the present pandemic-induced crisis, which will be explained from anthropological perspective. We all are very much aware about the consequences of COVID-19 pandemic. I remember when I had been a student of geography, we had to study about the concept of dynamic equilibrium. A state of balance between continuous process, which suddenly reached into a new era, which is quite different than the previous one. In that sense, I feel this COVID-19 pandemic is also a threshold point, which is going to impact tremendously in all spheres of our life. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, MC College Borpeta is the fourth oldest college of Assam, which was established on 14th July 1939. For your information, the foundation stone of this college was laid down by then Prime Minister of Assam, Bharat Ratna awardee Gopinath Bordole. Our college is a two streams institution having arts and science with postgraduate courses in 3 subjects. With these few words, I again heartily welcome you all. Thanks. At the same time, I am given the responsibility to integrate this webinar. So I declare to integrate this webinar too. Thank you. Now, Mr. Kolita.
Hello,
Mr.
sir.
Kolita.
Hello.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dr. Prakash Sharma, sir, Principal, MC College, Borpeta, for your welcome speech and also inaugural speech on behalf of both the colleges. And due to some problems, our principal, sir, Dr. Pradip Kumar Sharma, sir, has not joined due to some problems. So he informed me today morning. So thank you once again for your deliberation and speech. Now I request Sarat Chandra Bhuya sir, joint convener of this webinar, to carry forward the next part of the agenda. Over to you, Bhuya sir.
Thank you, J. Kolita sir. HOD, Department of Education, Masbat College. Good morning, everyone. Honorable Resource Person, Dr. Basbarua sir. Honorable Principal of Masbat College, Dr. Pradip Kumar Sharma sir. Our Honorable Principal of MC College, Borpeta, Dr. Prakash Sharma sir, and my esteemed colleagues, academicians, and participants. Welcome to the national webinar jointly organized by our PG Department of Anthropology, MC College, Borpeta, and IQSC and Department of Education, Masbat College, on the topic entitled The Present Pandemic-Induced Crisis, Understanding from an Anthropological Perspective. I am Sarat Chandra Bhuya, holding the position of HOD in the PG Department of Anthropology, MC College, Borpeta. Esteemed participants, today we have the privilege to have here with us our eminent Honorable Resource Person, Dr. Dipen Basbarua sir, who is the head of the Department of Anthropology, Guwahati University. He needs no special introduction. In spite of that, Dr. Dipen Basbarua sir is currently the professor and HOD of Anthropology Department, Guwahati University. For a brief period, he also served as a faculty member in the Department of Anthropology, Dibrugarh University. He is also the coordinator of UGC, SAP, DRSI of the Department of Anthropology, Guwahati University. He is also the coordinator of UGC, DRSI. He has published several research-based articles in journals and books of national and international level, and also edited 2 books on anthropology. He also served as the coordinator for the Northeast in project titled Rock Art and its allied subject in Northeast India, sponsored by Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, IGNCA, New Delhi. He was also a member of the Program Advisory Committee of Rock Art Unit of IGNCA, New Delhi. He is also a lifelong member of several national and international academic bodies like Indian National Confederation and Academy of Anthropologists. Briefly, INCA, Indian National Science Congress Association, INSA, and International Union of Ethnological and Anthropological Studies. Currently, he is the Joint Secretary of INCA. Besides mainland India and Northeast India, he has made intensive field studies in different territories of Southeast Asia, like Malaysia, Burma, and Thailand. He has visited different universities of United Kingdom, like Brunei University, Institute of Archaeology, London University, Cranfield University, and Oxford University on academic exchange program. Esteemed participants, we are fortunate enough to have such an academician of multifaceted genius. Without spending so much time, I would like to request our honorable resource person, Dr. Bez Barua sir, to deliver his speech. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Bhuya. Thank you very much. So very good morning to you all. Respected Dr. Prakash Sharma, Principal MC College, Borbeta, Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sharma, Principal Masbat College, in his absentia, Mr. Bhuya, HOD, Department of Anthropology, MC College, Borbeta, Mr. Jatin Kolita, HOD, Department of Education, Masbat College, esteemed faculty members of the Department of Anthropology in Education and other faculty members, distinguished participants, and my dear students. So, I'd like to at first thank the organizers, particularly Mr. Bhuya, HOD, Department of Anthropology, MC College, for having invited me to share some of my ideas with you on the topic, which has already been circulated. So, the recent or the present ongoing pandemic, which has devastated the global spheres across the world. So it is a very unexpected situation. We could not think that such a situation will prevail during our lifetime in the world, and we could see such an event. So it is definitely called a crisis by many scholars. So although there has not been any such scholarly writings on this aspect of the pandemic, on socio-cultural aspect particularly, but there has been some writings by anthropologists and social scientists, not very much research-based, and also some surveys being done by some of the organizations. So in the absence of research-based articles or research-based works, what I have tried to do is that I have tried to conceptualize the whole happening or try to visualize the whole happening of the recent pandemic, COVID-19, and just try to share some of my ideas. It is not a very research-based or highly focused discussion. Rather, I will give a very brief introduction or preliminary understanding of the situation from my own reflections, from whatever I can understand of the situation from an anthropological perspective. And I'll rather try to evade the different technical terms and try to as much as simple as I can, so that I can communicate with you. So the happening of these pandemics or occurrence of these pandemics is not very new to this world. So if you see the pages of the history, then there are prehistoric evidences of occurrences of pandemic. So you'll be happy to know, or you'll be surprised to know, that the archaeological evidence of pandemic in the world comes from the territories of China. Now, where the present pandemic has originated in China, as well as we have the prehistoric evidence from there. So there is a different branch of anthropology, which is called bioarchaeology or paleopathology, paleopathological studies. So these two branches, they study the occurrence of different diseases in the past, particularly in the prehistoric past, and also in the historical past, from archaeological evidences, from excavations and other archaeological evidences, particularly the skeletal remains and other organic remains of human beings, which have been preserved in different archaeological sites across the world. So there are two important sites in China, northeastern part of China, Mongolia. So one site is Hamin Mangha, northeastern China in the province of Mongolia, and another is Miao Jindo. So these two sites in northeast China are very important sites where large-scale human burials have been found. And recent bioarchaeological studies. So scholars, they have made these studies, and they have ascertained that some form of pandemic did affect the population groups of Mongolia at that point of time. These are small Chinese settlements in northeastern part of China, in Mongolia province, and which ultimately killed the persons there. So they have made recent studies and come to this conclusion. Earlier it was thought that this could be the disasters, natural disasters, which killed the population there, or Chinese settlements were wiped out in those Mongolian provinces of the archaeological sites. But recent archaeological studies have indicated that the cause of pandemic or widespread disease, which have killed the population. So the prehistoric evidence of pandemic also goes back to China. And the recent crisis, as we all know, it originated in Wuhan province of China, and then it spread to other parts of the world. So when a disease is called pandemic, it should have a wider manifestation, wider spread in terms of space, in terms of intensity. So here also we have seen that the present pandemic or present disease, COVID-19, so it has spread to different parts of the world. 95% of the world have been affected by it, and its intensity is very high. Already more than 2 crore population have been affected by this disease, and there are reported deaths of more than 7.5 lakhs till date. So you can understand the intensity of the disease. So apart from what I have mentioned about the archaeological sites where the evidences of prehistoric pandemic exist in China, then we have also some other reportings of such occurrence of pandemic in European context, particularly the plague of Athens for 430 BC, 430 before Christ. So in the city of Athens, it was devastated by a disease, although it was earlier assumed to be plague, but later on it was found that through all these bioarchaeological and paleopathological studies that it was fever and flu, which caused the death of large population, around 1 lakh population of the city of Athens were killed in the process of the disease. Then the next we have the Roman plague, 165 to 180 AD. It was reported from the Roman Empire. So again, it is not plague actually, it is a smallpox, the disease which affected the Roman population in 165, from 165 to 180 AD. And ultimately, he killed more than 5 lakh population. So these archaeological evidences are there. So the whole Roman Empire was devastated, and there was a halt to the Roman civilization as a result of that. Then after that, we have subsequently many such occurrence of pandemic, widespread diseases having high intensity, killing, affecting, and causing a disease to large group of populations from European context, from Latin American context, and also from Asian context also. So there was another American plague of 16th century. It occurred in Latin American context, although it originated in Eurasia, but it spread to the Latin America by European explorers who invaded those areas. And this great American plague of 16th century was responsible for wiping or destruction of the Inca and Aztec civilization, the great Inca and Aztec civilization of this Latin America. So these were wiped out by this American plague. Similarly, we have so many other examples from the European context and other parts of the world, pandemics throughout the history. The first two were the evidences from archaeological or prehistoric context. Later, these were all historical evidences. Then, coming to the present century, we have the great Spanish flu of 1918 to 1920 during the First World War. So this affected most areas of Europe, from southeast to up to North Pole area. Large group of populations were affected. Crores of people were died and affected by this Spanish flu during the First World War, and it also spread to India. So, from a ship, a large number of soldiers who came to India during the First World War from the European countries, so they brought the disease, they carried the disease to the Indian subcontinent. So ultimately they landed in Bombay or Mumbai, or earlier it was called Bombay, now it is Mumbai. So from Mumbai, it spread to the other parts of the country. Therefore, it is also known as the Bombay fever, Mumbai fever. So that also killed more than 1 crore, 1.5 crore of population. That Spanish flu or Mumbai fever or Bombay fever, as it is called, during 1918 to 1920. It also affected the population in Assam. So as evidence from the 1921 census, some scholars have indicated or have calculated that more than 1 lakh population of Assam were also killed due to that Spanish flu or Bombay fever. So there are some literary works, some research-based works, some papers written by different scholars on the Spanish flu. So we can have the accounts. If you search our journals and other papers and other PhD theses and other internet sites, you will find about most about the Spanish flu, how it affected. Even the soldiers of the First World War were also highly affected. Then after that, generally very recently, we have that SARS-CoV 2003. So it is also a coronavirus, but it is not the novel virus like that we have in the 2019. It was an earlier form of COVID virus. It affected the population when? In 2013. It also originated. It also originated where? It also originated in the Chinese province in Hong Kong and other areas. But during that time in 2003, that SARS virus, it could not affect the population very widely. Although it was declared pandemic, but it could not affect the population. Only around 9,000 population, 8,096, something like that population throughout the world were affected. Although the disease spread to parts of Europe and America and other parts of Asia, it only affected only 9,000 population, on killing only 784, around 800 people and 800 persons over the world. So it was not such a devastating 2003 SARS-CoV pandemic. Then we have the Ebola and Zika, all these virus, Zika virus, then Ebola virus, and other form of virus or other pandemics. But this has not affected the global population on such a wider scale, like we have in the case of the present COVID-19. So from the prehistoric past through the history and also to the present century, we have such example of pandemics affecting the globe, affecting the world on different scales. But the present crisis, the present pandemic is in a sense different from the others. Why? Number one, now we are living in an age of globalization, global culture, global connectivity. So this has become, the world has become like a global village, according to some scholars. So connectivity through the different parts of the world is very assuming in a faster pace. This is one. Secondly, we are living in a digital world, digital devices. So this digital world, we are living in a phase of digitization where virtual connection, virtual connectivity with society and culture among population, among individuals has become very easier. These are two. And secondly, the present pandemic has a greater intensity. As I have already said, 95% of the world territories have been affected by the present pandemic. So out of 232 countries and territories, 230 countries and territories, some of them are not declared as countries by the UNO as such recognized, but still it is the unofficial estimation, have been affected by the present pandemic. And as I have mentioned, more than 2.2 crore population have been affected. So initially, there was a great, you can say, surprise to the world. What is happening in the name of a virus? It is affecting population at such a wider pace, and it is spreading throughout the different parts of the world. So the countries and territories and other organizations were shocked initially, health organizations, but later on they could visualize, or they could understand a little bit about the virus, about the disease. So initially what happened, as I have mentioned, the global connectivity, the global culture. So this in fact have led to the spread and expansion of the disease to different parts and territories of the world. So as the report we have, as you can see from the reports, the first report of this COVID-19 was reported from the Chinese province of Wuhan in December 19, I think. Yeah, December 19. First case of this COVID-19 was reported from Wuhan province. Then within 1 month, December 30th January, 1 month and 11 days. The first case was reported from India, from Kerala. Then second and third also from Kerala. From 1st February, then 2nd February, it was also reported from Kerala. And interestingly, the cases in Kerala, in India, were also students who studied where? In Wuhan province. So they came back from Wuhan to India through flight. So immediately, within 1 month, the first reportings of this COVID-19 was from India, from Kerala province. And subsequently, all the 10 cases, if we analyze, then we will see that they were either foreign returned Indians or tourists. Italian tourists were also affected in March, first part of March, in Jaipur, city of Jaipur, the heritage city of India or heritage city of Rajasthan. So they visited. So they were also affected, and some local population were affected. So here you can see the origin of the pandemic in Indian context is also due to what? Is global connectivity. So it has expanded. Similarly, in other parts also it is spread. And if you analyze the data, then you can see this movement of population is so fast in this world that if you analyze the data from 2019 from the context of Assam, then we can see that around 49 lakhs tourists, national tourists from different parts of India, South India, North India, middle part of India. So they visited Assam in 2019, and around 26,000 international tourists from different parts of the world, they visited Assam in 2019. So this is against the fact that November, December, this month, 2019, we have unrest, some form of movement going on in Assam. Otherwise, the figure would have been far more than that. So you can see such type of population migration, or population movement to Assam, to the small state of Assam. Then you can imagine what could be the population movement if you take the country as a whole. And not to speak about the other a population from Assam who are staying in other parts of India or other parts of the world. So according to official report, we have 5 lakh workers from Assam working in different parts of the country, particularly in southern states. Unofficially, the figure is around 8 lakhs. And not to speak about the other students and other who are staying abroad and studying. So they have also migrated. So this population movement and in a digital world, in a global world. So this has led to the expansion and spread of the disease to different parts of the world at a faster speed and affecting 95% of the territories and countries of the world and affecting around till date around more than 2 crores of population. So you can imagine the magnitude. That initially different agencies or different countries and government, they could not realize what is happening, the intensity of the virus. So ultimately, this lockdown was imposed in India. You know about that. March 24, we have observed or we have witnessed the lockdown effect in Indian context, invoking the Epidemic Act or Disaster Management Act. Everything was shut down. Every process, every movement, population movement, socio-cultural activity, these were all stopped. Business, trade and commerce, social institution, education institution, religious functionings, everything were stopped due to this lockdown. So initially people try to accept, try to understand, or they were silent observer of the whole situation and they were trying to obey. And whatever little information we have from different government agencies, in Indian context, we have the ICMR, Indian Council of Medical Research, or the Ministry of Health, Government of India, or the state government, state ministers, National Health Mission. Like those agencies, they are providing us with the information and all the health advisories, what to do and what not to do during lockdown. And also in international context, we have the WHO, World Health Organization. They have been also imparting different information and knowledge and advisories regarding health to be followed during this initial phase of lockdown. So we all try to obey. Population across the globe, wherever this lockdown was imposed, or in some context, lockdown was also not there, but there were some other forms of restrictions. So these were tried to be followed by the population or people across the world. So this was the first phase of lull, or first phase of, you can say, this pandemic, where we had in the February, March, or basically March, April, and May, where we have the first phases of lockdown. So slowly what happened, different cultural terminologies, literary terms, and different health terms, this dominated our discourse, popular discourse. Our যিটো common understanding আছিলে, আমি যিটো বুজি আছিলো, আমাৰ চাৰিফালৰ তাত কিছুমান নতুন নতুন কথা আহিব ধৰিলে। Like we have different terms, physical and social distancing, lockdown, then face mask, then we have sanitization. এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ বহুত ধৰণৰ কথা এইবিলাক আহি গ'ল লাহে লাহে আমাৰ সমাজত, আমাৰ সংস্কৃতিত, সেইবিলাকে প্ৰাধান্য লাভ কৰিলে। We have to rely heavily on those terms and we have to strictly observe. And most of our daily walks or daily understanding were surrounded before them, those health advisories. Then slowly, subsequently, we have to adjust accordingly. Then the digital world or digital platforms become very familiar to us because we have to somehow adjust to the changing situation. Then what happened? Different digital platforms. E-connectivity was there, of course. Then digital devices, we took recourse to different digital devices. E-connectivity was there. Then all these different digital apps became popular in our discourse. Our children and students, they were accustomed to what? These online classes. Then Zoom meeting, virtual meetings, then ultimately webinars. So these terms we are not very accustomed. Say 1 year back or 6 months back, we are not very much accustomed to this new understanding of our societal norms. But this has become the new societal norms, new cultural norms, which have dominated our understanding, our perception of the society and cultures. And accordingly, we try to adjust and readjust to this different situation. So this type of virtual understanding or virtual culture has also dominated our life our society and culture, our popular understanding. So, as I have already mentioned, that this is the world of digital, this is a digital phase, digital world we are living now, but the application was not so fast, or so it did not have such impact earlier. But due to this pandemic crisis, their impact was very fast and having deeper effects. And particularly the health terms that I have mentioned, these two terms, particularly the lockdown and physical and social distancing. Some use the term social distancing, but I'd like to rather use the term physical distancing. These two terms are very significant from anthropological perspective. Why? Because lockdown, everybody was shut down. No social interactions, no physical interaction. Everything has to be performed from sitting inside the house. Then secondly, what happened? That social and physical distancing. So people could not interact, go out, interact, gather, and perform their socio-cultural obligations. So this also stopped the societal and cultural functioning, normal functioning of the society. So these two terms are very much important from anthropological perspective. We have to investigate and think over the consequences of it. And as I have also mentioned, some of the new health terms which which had impact on our society. So I forgot to mention two of the other earlier terms along with all this sanitization, social distancing, then lockdown. Two terms, that is quarantine and isolation. So these are also important terms and health advisories. So how to quarantine. So this has also become a popular word in our society and cultures. Uh, Although it did exist in our traditional society, traditional social space, this concept of quarantine. In our rural settings, earlier, we have enough literature to point out toward this practice of quarantine, particularly when some contagious diseases, some of them were not contagious, of course, but when persons were infected with such diseases, then they were allowed to be live in isolation. বিশেষকৈ আমাৰ গাঁওবিলাকত আগতে আছিলে এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ কুষ্ঠ ৰোগী যেতিয়া কুষ্ঠ ৰোগৰ পৰা মানুহ আক্ৰান্ত হয়, এতিয়া কি কৰে যে তেওঁক ঘৰৰ পিছফালে বাহনি বা এনেকুৱা আচুতীয়া জেগাত ঘৰ বনাই তাত থাকিব দিয়া হয়। তেওঁ তাতে খোৱা বোৱা সকলো যোগান দিয়া হয় গাঁৱৰ মানুহে বা পৰিয়ালৰ মানুহে। এণ্ড আল্টিমেটলি যদি কেতিয়াবা মানুহজন ভাল হয় তেতিয়াহ'লে তেওঁক ঘৰৰ ভিতৰলৈ আহিব দিয়া হয়। আৰু কেতিয়াবা কিছুমান মানুহ তেনেকৈ আচুতীয়াভাৱে থাকিয়ে তাতে মৃত্যু ঘটে, quarantine. So these type of concepts or these type of practices were there. But now these have assumed a newer dimension, newer significance in an urban context and also in a digital phase of civilization. So if you see across the world, cutting across societies, cutting across the barriers of society, religion, cutting across the barriers of different communities. So we have seen these terms have taken an universal usage by different societies and cultures across the world. They are very much accustomed now to these terms. So if you go to the African context or Asian context or Latin American context or remote area of Europe, you simply say the word quarantine. Their language or their local language may be different, but they will definitely understand because this has been propagated, this has been disseminated, this knowledge has been disseminated by different media, by different agencies throughout this lockdown phase, first or earlier phase also. So therefore, this has assumed a different cultural connotations across our society and culture over the globe. So this is important. So anthropological, as I have said, these two terms are very important, this lockdown and social distancing or physical distancing. So how it is affecting our society and culture. So then gradually what happened, since lockdown was more and more and this duration was expanded to prevent the disease, second phase, third phase, and like that. So slowly what happened, this effect was noticed in our culture and society in a more you can say intensive way. So what happened as a result is that later on our social institutions suffered to a great extent. So institutions in a society, so they have certain characteristics. So all the teachers and students of anthropology will know that institutions, social institutions, so they should have stability, they should have permanency, and they should function continuously for their existence in a society, institutions, including educational institutions also, and also religious institutions. But due to this pandemic, there was a sudden halt or discontinued functioning of those institutions. So apart from that, in our uh, rights and usual aspect, crisis rights, which is so important, propounded by scholars like Van Gennep, Right de Passage, or Victor Turner, like different crisis rights, like birth, initiation and puberty ceremonies, marriage ceremony, and death. So these are important crisis rights and rituals, which every society and culture follow in different ways across the globe. But due to this pandemic, there was a sudden halt or sudden break in the functioning of those crisis rights across the world. Several marriages were cancelled, birth ceremonies were cancelled. So this we did not see. Even what happened is that the main or one of the important crisis right, that is death, which is observed ceremoniously by different cultures and society across the world. So this was also affected to a great extent. So people were afraid to bury or cremate the dead. So they had the apprehension that the deceased person might be affected by this pandemic, by COVID-19. So even in some cases, what happened after the dead bodies are brought, maybe the death may be the cause of death, may be some other disease, but it has to be tested. And when it was tested positive only, that burial rites or cremation rites were performed in different parts. Not to speak about the urban societies, even in a rural and you can say in our tribal societies. So we had the report from Khasi, Shillong, from the Khashi community. So when there was a death of that director of that hospital, Bithani Hospital, so when he expired due to COVID-19, so people, the Khasi population, local population, they denied performing his last rites, death rites, or his burial rites, and the administration has to come and they have to make them understand, and ultimately he was cremated after long halt. So this kind of, you can say, abhorrence, cultural abhorrence to performing of the crisis rites, including the death, which is so integral to our society and culture. So this has been also greatly affected in different parts of the world, whether it is India, whether it is Europe or African traditional societies. In Africa also, I have seen many such reports from Nigeria, from Ethiopia and other parts. So the death rites were not performed when a person died due to COVID-19. Of course, there were some health advisories. So in the presence of the health personnel or district administration personnel, few persons were allowed. But in other cases also, when the person did not die of due to this COVID-19, so at that time also people suspected and they denied performing these last rites. So this was the situation. So some scholars, they try to turn this crisis as crisis, cultural crisis, or some has also coined the term civilizational crisis. So how this has affected the societies and culture across the world, cutting across all barriers, as I have already mentioned. But from an anthropological perspective, I don't like to prefer to use the term cultural crisis or civilizational crisis. It is a different word which other social scientists might think over. But from anthropological perspective, I'd like to rather use the term culture constriction. সংস্কৃতি সংকোচন অসমীয়া অলপ দিনৰ কাৰণে there is a sudden, or you can say for a brief period, there are this type of constrictions or this type of restrictions we are seeing in the performance or ongoing of our society or functioning of the societal and cultural different aspects of the society and culture. But definitely, the culture will adjust, society will adjust and readjust in the days to come. And as I have mentioned about the virtual world or digital world, which has also come as an aid to rescue our culture and civilization in such a situation. So I know I have some reports from some of my acquaintances in Guwahati, in the city of Guwahati. They have performed virtual marriage. You'll be surprised to know in the present period, very recently, in the second lockdown. Because in the first lockdown, the boy and the girl, or the bride and the groom, they live in the Chennai. They live in Chennai in some IT industry. They are working. So their marriage was cancelled first time. Then again second time it was fixed, but extension of this lockdown, it was also cancelled in the month of May or something like last part of May. Then ultimately what happened? They fixed during this June, first part of July. But again, there was imposition of lockdown in Assam. So, and also there was, you can say, restriction of movement of the parents and other relatives who are there in Guwahati. So as a result, what they did is that in Chennai, the bride and the groom, or the boy and the girl, they assemble in a hall with very near friends, 5-6 friends, and the priest, they came also. They performed the marriage there, and it was virtually transmitted to their parents and relatives who are in Guwahati through Zoom and other applications. So these type of things are happening. So because the society cannot wait, the culture cannot wait to the thing to go and be in a normal situation. So this type of adjustment and readjustment are there. So I have given this example of virtual, you can say, marriage, which is happening in the city of Guwahati, and maybe in other parts we do not have any reports, but this type of virtual performance of our cultural rights, our social rights, will take place in the near futures to come. As recent reports have said that this pandemic is going to expand. আৰু বহুত দিন হয়তো থাকিব পাৰে যদি এইটো আৰু এবছৰ দুবছৰ থাকে তেনেহলে এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ যিবিলাক আমাৰ ভাৰ্চুৱেল প্লেটফৰ্ম ইউজ কৰি এনেকুৱা ধৰণৰ ক্ৰাইচিছ ৰাইটছবিলাকো আমাৰ হয়তো সম্পন্ন কৰিবলগীয়া হ'ব পাৰে so the situation might come then as I was mentioned the importance of digital world so this is also a very important aspect how e-connectivity and digital devices has helped us so there is time so I can just narrate one experience with you, share one experience. So when this Ola and Uber was introduced in Guwahati city, 3 or 4 years back, one day I was traveling from Panbazar to university in Ola car. So the driver was a very new face to Guwahati as I could recognize from his face. Then after coming back after traveling for a distance from Panbazar, in Fancy Bazar area, he suddenly asked me, sir, do you live in the Guwahati University campus? I said, yes. Then he said, oh, then we have to cross Adabari to reach Guwahati University. I said, yes. So have you been to Adabari? He said, yes, long back. I have been to Adabari and this is my second visit. I said, oh, it is second visit. Yes, on the day before yesterday, I came to Guwahati, then through one of my friends, and ultimately I hired this Ola cab and now I am driving. So this is possible in the present context because we have all the devices or digital devices, digital world, e-connectivity. So he can simply drive from one place of Guwahati to other, which was unbelievable when we first came to Guwahati 25 or 30 years back. We landed in Guwahati, then there are definitely some relatives or some acquaintances were there waiting for us in the bus station who could guide us to different parts of the city. But now it is possible. A person who came to Guwahati 2 days back, he is driving a Ola and Uber as a cab driver. It is possible because of digital devices. So this type of connectivity or this type of digital culture, so which has much importance in our society, is also going to have impact on the society. So as I have already mentioned about all this functioning of the social institution earlier, how it is being affected, the normal functioning, the permanency of this, the continuation of all these institutions, social institutions, so how this has been affected. And organic relationship in the society has also been greatly affected, the interdependence of the individuals. And also, as I have already mentioned about another solidarity, organic solidarity or mechanical solidarity. These concepts have been put forward by different visit this type of theories and this type of propositions, how society, whether society is functioning under this presumed concepts of social uh, evolution or social structure or not. Then we have also some other popular, you can say, cultural theories like theories of diffusion, acculturation, then culture area, then all other this type of enculturation. This is also important, or socialization. So these type of social or cultural theories. So how they are now acting on our society and culture. We have also to rethink and revisit and reapply how we can reformulate the understanding of the society and culture of the civilization. And it will assume greater significance if this pandemic extends to more than 1 or 2 years, as it has been prophesied or it has been forecast, okay, by some of the scholars, that some of the medical scientists, that it will go on. There may be reoccurrence, second phase or third phase like that. Then this impact on our society and culture we have to see. And from that perspective, if we import the ideas of Victor Turner, scholars like Victor Turner, the liminality or liminal space. We are living in a liminal space. So he applied this for our rights, crisis rights, from death to birth. There may be some transitional phase. So we are now in a societal transitional phase or liminality or in a liminal space. We are going from one phase to the other. Maybe this may be the virtual cultures or virtual phase. If this continues for longer and longer period, if it affects rigorously our society and culture in the days to come, then we'll see different sorts of happening in our society, which we may not know, or which we cannot forecast, we cannot visualize what is going to happen. So this is the situation right at present. Secondly, in the context of the world also, so this may also affect the process of globalization or global cultural movement or global connectivity, because the people or the countries and territories of the world are now at a defensive stage. They have seen the devastating effect of globalization. On one hand, the economic and trade aspect, another aspect has been accentuated or it has been increased by the global connectivity, global culture. But on the other hand, if such type of disasters, pandemics, it originates, then it has a faster spread rate in the present global context or globalization context. Therefore, they are giving second and third thoughts to abandon, or you can say to rampant process of globalization, whether it is going to affect our society and culture at the same pace in the days to come or not. So we can see some changes in these aspects also. And the other aspects, as I have mentioned, the social distancing and lockdown and effects and our social behavior. So this is also going to be changed in the days to come. And also the other virtual platforms, virtual culture, digital culture, how it is going to have impact on our society and culture in the days to come. So I think that social scientists, particularly anthropologists, they can do enough investigation and field-based investigation on all these aspects, how it is affecting different societies, tribal, rural, urban societies, and they can formulate their own hypothesis and they can formulate their newer proposition in the days to come. And also, from public health perspective also, if you analyze the situation, then anthropology has a greater role to play. Like in the case of Ebola, the occurrence of Ebola in African context, there we have some reports, different reports of social scientists and also anthropologists who work as volunteers in disseminating the knowledge to the population, because they can reach the tribal and other rural population in a much, you can say, easier way compared to other, because we value culture, anthropologists give very much value to culture, and also they have the training, field-based training. So definitely they can work rigorously among those marginal societies, among those tribal societies, or among those poor societies, and they can work as social volunteers or community workers, rather community workers, and they can help and aid, or they can help and aid in checking the disease and disseminating the actual information or actual health advisories or behavioral changes which is affecting those societies, how the people can cope up with the changing situation with their understanding of the culture and society. So these are all the thoughts that have come to my mind, and that's those with which I have tried to share with you on the basis of my understanding. Please forgive me if I have made any mistake. These are not very well researched discussion that I have shared with you, but these are, you can say, immediate reflection or immediate ideas that have come to my mind over these months when we are all observing all these health advisories and social norms, and when we are having connectivity with you with all through all these digital platforms. Even 1 year back, I could not imagine that I'll be interacting with the esteemed faculty members and students through such type of virtual meet. But this time has come. Now I have been also accustomed to this, and you are also accustomed. And in the days to come, we can see some newer happenings also. And in the future also, we can have some forecasts based on our anthropological understanding. When this type of disasters or this kind of pandemic, when this inflicts our humanity, our society and culture, or the world, then how we can cope up with through our anthropological understanding. So thank you once again for inviting me and giving me this platform to share some of my ideas. If you have any suggestions, any things to make or any questions, you are very much free to interact, and I'll try to reply with my limited understanding of the subject. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir, for your very resourceful speech, and it was really delightful and enriching, and we are enlightened for it. And I think all the participants are benefited from your deliberation. Thank you. Now I request all the participants to put your query. You may also put your questions in the chat box. I have already catch up 3 questions from the chat box. So I'd like to put forward to our respected resource person, Bezbura sir. So first question is, what are the anthropological approaches towards pandemic disease? This question is from Sanidul Bhuya. Question is, I repeat, what are the anthropological? Yes, sir.
This is principal and Nicholas. Before that, I just like to put a query. Before going to answer these questions, a simple query to Professor Besborough, sir. Can I put a question?
Yeah, please.
Sir, sure. Just I'd like to know from you, what is the impact of COVID-19 upon the tribal peoples? What is your observations?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sharma, for your question, particularly the impact of COVID-19 on the tribal population. So this is a very important question that we have asked. So I have given one example from this crisis rights, how it has been affected, particularly the death rights is very much affected, and even the Khasi society, which is so much organic, which is so much, you can say, interdependence is there in performance of the social rights. So they also resisted the burial rights of person dying due to this COVID-19. And not only that, in other cases also, we have reports from Karbi Anglong, we have reports from Dima Hausa also. When person died, either in hospital or in some other places, then these death rights were denied initially. This is one. And secondly, I have some reports from some of my friends living in interiors of the Karbi Anglong, the interiors of Karbi Anglong, where some of the dead tribes, there were the priests who connected through virtual platform. Interesting, because in a certain performance of certain curvy detrites, the traditional, you can say, Uchepi is one term, the person who traditionally narrates the story of the person and in the form of crying, like the Rudalis we have from Rajasthan. So this type of traditional, these type performers are there. So in one case, what happened due to lockdown, the performer could not come. So she came to one of the nearest town where there was connectivity. So one person connected through the virtual platform. She performed that through the virtual this platform, and ultimately in the place of in the house of the dead, it was transmitted, or it was you can say transmitted through some other virtual platform. So this is happening from tribal society also. So these are some very small examples, but as I have already mentioned that this is not, my discussion is not totally based on research-based studies, because we are not in a position to visit field and all this due to lockdown and social distancing, all these things. But in the research, in the days to come, in the near future, if you can go to the field and you can make some field visits, we can have discussions with the informants in the societies, then we will definitely we can get some more understanding of the situation, how it has affected our tribal and traditional societies. But the other things like the health advisories, all health terminologies, as I have mentioned. So this has been also observed by different traditional societies and tribal societies, even in the interiors. These terms are very much now common even in the interiors, like this quarantine, isolation, social distancing, sanitization. You will find in different interior societies or tribal and traditional societies. So this is now, at this point, I can only explain these to you, but let's see in the near future, if you can find something.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, then there was some other one question, anthropological approaches by one of the participants, is not it? Professor Kodita, this is also
Yes,
another
sir.
question.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, anthropological approaches. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So,
that was what are the anthropological approaches towards a pandemic disease? Yes, sir.
So there has been different anthropological studies on pandemic throughout different periods. Several such writings or research-based writings are there, particularly on the plagues and other black deaths, the European black deaths of 13th century, and the Spanish flu. Several research-based writings or research articles are there. So anthropologists have tried to understand from two perspectives. One is from the physical anthropological perspective. The medical anthropological perspective is there, from which the practices, healthcare practices, then how it has affected the understanding of the pandemic in a newer situation, and how the societies and culture perceive. So perception will be different in different societies, of course, but although there will be some general understanding of the same, but these approaches will be different in the present context, as I have already mentioned, due to the global cultural activities, global connectivity, and also due to the digital platforms that we have now access. The understanding in the present context will be different. So apart from the standard anthropological understanding from different theories of culture, so these medical anthropological approaches and approaches from physical anthropologists, like how it is affecting the reproductive and child health, and how it is affecting the morbidity pattern. So comorbidity, so person with some other diseases, so they are more affected due to this COVID-19. So these studies from medical perspective, medical anthropological perspective, or from the perspective of physical anthropology can be also made. So I think several such areas are now open. And I have also mentioned about the community volunteers, how they have worked in African context during the outbreak of Ebola. So this type of community volunteers can also aid and help the public health specialists and the administration who are fighting the disease pandemic, this type of pandemics in this situation. So I think this could be the newer approaches to the understanding of the pandemic.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. There is another question from Dipti Devi. Sir, can a pandemic be another possible reason for demise of Indus Valley civilization?
Dr. Devi, Mr. Devi, Ms. Devi. So this is a very interesting question regarding the Indus Valley civilization pandemic. So yes, one theory was there due to the decline of the civilization that this pandemic did affect the population of the Indus Valley, and ultimately there was a decline to the civilization. Some scholars try to understand the decline of Indus Valley civilization from that perspective. But now some paleopathological studies that I have already mentioned has also been undertaken on the Indus Valley civilization. Some mass graves have been found in some site from some sites of Indus Valley civilization, particularly in a site more than 99 dates have been found. But unlike the Chinese one, as I have mentioned about the Hamin Manga, so these people died at different time, different period in Indus Valley. So it was not a sudden death within a very brief span of time. So forensic archaeological studies have indicated that this was not sudden death, like the one that is reported from Chinese province, Mongolia province. So Indus Valley civilization, some of the population died due to some disease like anemia, acute anemia, and some osteoporosis, some bone diseases. This has been ascertained by scholars, but not due to pandemic because the death was not sudden as the recent findings. But as I have mentioned, in Mongolian site, Amin Manga, so it was pandemic because the death was sudden within a very period of 6 months, 6 to 7 months. More than 200 people died from that particular Chinese village, Chinese settlement. And later on also there was some other effect. And this has been ascertained by this type of DNA analysis of those archaeological sites. So the Indus Valley civilization came to a decline, but this was not exactly due to pandemic, but some other causes were also there, particularly natural causes like maybe climatic change or some other environmental causes might be there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have taken another question from chat box. It is from Bikas Ranjan Tahbildar. He asks, what will be the main task of applied anthropologist regarding the present situation to help the administrator? Sir, please.
So thank you. Thank you, Bikas, for your important question, applied anthropological aspect. So a portion of this I have touched in my earlier discussion, the community volunteers, how they can help and aid the health personnel and also the government agencies in formulation or in combating the disease. So in African context, during the outbreak of Ebola, how these community volunteers did tremendous work from visiting the villages, making the population understand about the disease, spreading the health advisories to the population, formation of different social units, village units, task force, village task force. So now we have seen in the context of Assam also, the health minister was few months back, he was also speaking of formation of the village task force. But here, mostly the importance is given to political leaders or this type. But there is a need for anthropologists and other social scientists to come forward, particularly the epidemiologists. So they have to be at different levels, from the level of planning, to the level of working in the field. So if those social scientists and anthropologists are engaged, I think they can give the proper feedback to the government or implementing agencies. And in that aspect, I think applied anthropology can play a greater role. So with the concepts and ideas of applied anthropology, action anthropology, so anthropologists, students of anthropology, the teachers and research scholars of anthropology can be of much help. And sometimes these voluntary organizations, which are called NGOs, non-government organizations, so volunteers working in there, so if anthropologists are also engaged there, so they can give enough inputs, because from physical anthropological perspectives, all these studies about the disease and morbidity, the genetics perspective, there is genetical perspective also sometimes, and how this healthcare perception, medical anthropological perception, and this understanding, these are applied from the applied anthropological perspective, then I think we can have some more or better results in the days to come. And I think that if this pandemic will persist or this continues for a longer duration, definitely the government agencies definitely will have to consult the social scientists and anthropologists and others scholars who are engaged in disease and pandemic research for better solution or better understanding of the situation and to meet with the situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There is another question from Bitupal. He is asking about how e-learning affects in student study in this pandemic, especially in rural areas. Actually, sir, this is a common question
Yes.
because everybody know that due to the network issues and electricity, there are different problems in local areas. So we cannot give suggestion. We have to just wait for the government to solve this problem. So according to you, sir, please proceed.
Now, yes, as I have mentioned, this is a problem, connectivity and other issues, accessibility issues. Not all the students have this type of gadgets available with them. This is definitely a problematic. So government and other agencies will definitely have to come and provide all the support to this type of digital support to the students and other community leaders in different parts of the country. I'm speaking about our country, so that they can, you can say, take the help of this in e-learning process. But as I have already said, and as I believe, these online classes and e-learning is not the main, or it should not be the principal mode of education. This may be a supplementary, this can supplement, but physical interaction is very much essential for dissemination of knowledge or interaction with the students and so interaction with the people. This I believe as one of the researcher in anthropology, student of anthropology myself, and I also do not advocate so much on online teaching as such. And secondly, this type of online platform. So say 1 year back, I was not imagining, I did not have the imagination that I will be interacting with all of you through this type of webinars. But this I have been doing for the last 2-3 months through different this type of virtual platforms. So this has become one of the part and parcel of our life. So the students who are also deprived of this type of digital, you can say, support. So definitely government agencies should come forward. So we have seen how political parties, they use virtual rallies and they are spreading to nook and corner. They are connecting with people in the nook and corner of the country. So in the same manner, they can also help and aid our students and public at large to have access to this type of digital devices, which can supplement the physical, or you can say direct teaching and learning process. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There is another question from Yogita Rana. How society as a whole can be strengthened during such pandemic, especially when we see a few people are very responsible and others are not?
So this is again very common question. So there will always deviation. Social deviance is a norms. So in all societies, so therefore there have been the mechanism of social control in from anthropological perspective. How to regulate the societal behavior. So definitely this is a very newer form of situation, very sudden and unexpected form of social situation which we are encountering. We have to accustom to different sorts of behavioral changes in our day-to-day life, like this social distancing, physical distancing, lockdown. So these are very new. Definitely, in such a situation, a small population, a small percentage of the population will definitely have to will definitely deviate from the rules and regulations which are being circulated or which are being implemented by different agencies or the political establishment. Definitely there will be some deviation, but definitely as I have mentioned, so if you can engage community volunteers or other workers or task force village level or grassroots level task force personnel, so they can disseminate this knowledge of how to behave in such a pandemic situations and how to abide and why to abide this type of health advisories for combating and facing the disease. Definitely, this is an important aspect in the present context. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Another question from Roshan Kumar Mishra. How anthropological perspectives helpful in during pandemic COVID-19?
So I think I have repeated most of the answers. Anthropological perspective. In fact,
Yes,
my whole discussion was centered around this anthropological
yes, sir.
perspective, anthropological understanding. So if you again analyze, I think you will get most of the answers. If I
Yes,
again
I do.
elaborate this, I will be repeating the thing.
Oh, sir. Okay, sir. There is another question from Alekha Chandra Gadhai. Sir, will the biological impact of coronavirus affect the anthropological evolution of human civilization in a long run?
There is every possibility. We don't know because very less of the virus and the pandemic is known right now. So even we are in a higher form of science and civilization and digital world, so uh, much is not known about the virus and the pandemic. According to some scientists, we are only forecasting, or we are being able to understand only 60% or 70% of the virus. The 30% is still we have to find out about the disease and virus and other aspects. So definitely it is going to take some devastating forms in the days to come, or if there are recurrence, or if there are no vaccines or medicines to combat the disease, then definitely this is going to have some, you can say, wider impact. We cannot say at this point of time. We have to wait and see. But definitely there may be some effect on the civilization. As I have already mentioned, that about the process of globalization, global activity. So people and countries and territories have thought that they are defensive against this type of rampant globalization. Now they are planning to check. We have seen that different countries like USA, which was very much uh, tourist friendly, or they invite uh, other persons from other countries. So they have imposed certain restrictions, even China and other European countries also. So in the days ahead, this type of restrictions maybe there can be a check to the global culture. But whether the civilization will be declined or not, this is we have to look, and we have to uh, analyze it by seeing the future course of action, how the disease or pandemic affect in the days to come. So at this point, it is very difficult to say. But of course, many such civilization or settlements, or many such um, uh, countries or civilizations throughout the history or prehistory. So this has been affected by this type of pandemic. This is only what I can say from at present. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. This is the last question uh, from Alekha Chandra. COVID-19 pandemic has destroyed social solidarity, culture, and humanity in India. Do you agree, sir?
How this I have already mentioned, how this solidarity. So I have also tried to discuss from the understanding from Durkheim perspective, Durkheim. So he has also said about this solidarity, mechanical solidarity, organic solidarity. So this were tried to, from this perspective, it was tried to understand and analyze the social institutions, the events of the society, ongoing of the society. Definitely this has affected, and I think in most of my discussion I have uh, indicated, or I have touched these aspects as well. How the crisis sites have been affected, particularly the death rates, which is so important. And this has been also affected to a great extent, not to speak about other institutions, the continuity and permanency of the social institutions, which should be there, how this has been affected over these 3-4 months. But it is very short, as I have already mentioned, to forecast or to visualize the future. So in the days to come, if there's an extension of the pandemic, then we'll have we can foresee some more other devastating effect or more socio-cultural impact that will take place in our society and culture, and the readjustment and adjustment that our society and culture take in the days to come. So say after 1 year, or there will be some more research-based findings which will come out in the anthropological literature, which definitely we can share and we can try to understand. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I have seen that now lots of questions are coming in the set box, but due to time constraints, we cannot continue. Still, I request the participants, if you put any questions directly, then please raise your hand so that we can allow you to unmute. You can put your questions directly. 1 or 2 more questions we can allow. And also we apologize that due to time constraint, we are unable to take all the questions which are I have seen in the chat box. Yes, Deborah's, I request Ornab Setia, please allow Deborah's.
Yes, sir. I allowed him, sir.
Yes, Deborah's, you can.
Sir, myself, Debraj from Anthropology Department, Guwahati University. Sir, what are the consequences of this COVID-19 and how will we will be dealing like for researchers and students where anthropology is mostly field oriented and now due to COVID we cannot go to field or like we cannot interact with other peoples.
So thank you, Deborah, for your question. So as I have mentioned, that anthropology, it tries to study or tries to understand the society and culture from two important perspectives. That is, one is culture, and secondly, field work or field-based understanding. So definitely, due to this COVID-19, these two aspects, particularly the field-based studies, have been affected to a great extent. This is definitely there. So if it persists, then definitely we have to think about some newer techniques and forms. If this extends for a longer period, so we have to see how we can, how application of digital devices can be helped or can be applied. But as I have already mentioned, that physical interaction and the traditional anthropological fieldwork process, so this we cannot evade at this point of time. So till that time, we have to rely upon that. But depending upon the future situation, if this persists, as I have already mentioned, if it continues, then definitely we have to think for newer strategies for fieldwork and understanding of the culture. So at this point, I think I can only share this with you. We can have discussion later on in our class. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. If any, respected participants, if you put your any question directly, then please raise your hand. Perhaps no. Yes, Roshan Kumar Mishra. Ornab Setia, allow Roshan Kumar Mishra. Ornab Setia. Yes, Roshan Kumar, please unmute yourself.
I requested, sir, but he did not unmute himself.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
no. Yes, we are.
Yes, sir. Myself, Roshan Kumar Mishra, an assistant teacher from the West Bengal. My question is with Vipin sir. First of all, sir, I give my heartiest gratitude to you about the information that you have given to all of us. And my question is that in what way the social and aspect of the anthropology is affect the cultural anthropology?
Thank you, Mr. Roshan Kumar Sharma. So
Mr. Sir.
Mr. Roshan Mishra. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So you have joined from West Bengal. Thank you for your participation. So how it is going to affect the society or social aspects? So I think I have discussed all these things. So first, we have to understand from a layman perspective, from a general student, from a general perspective, we can see, perceive how it is effective. And secondly, from anthropological perspective, how it is affecting our society and culture. So I think I have tried to discuss all these social aspects or sociological, social perspective, cultural perspective, then archaeological perspective, how these pandemics were there during the prehistoric past, and also during the historical past, how archaeologists have tried to find from different studies and investigation, how it has affected the humanity at large. Then applied anthropological perspective also, I think I have discussed to some extent how our anthropological knowledge will try to help. So if you recapitulate the discussion, then I think you will get most of the answers with that. So if I again go on discussing the impact on the social culture, then I think I'm going to again repeat. And as I have already mentioned, that this is not a very research-based discussion that I am having with you. This is on the basis of whatever I have read, I have studied, I have known on the present situation and my own understanding of the situation from an anthropological perspective. So in the future, if we can have some more research-based studies, then I think we can share some more ideas. So thank you for your question. And also I'd like to thank the organizers, because I have seen that more than 270 participants from different parts of the country have joined. So thank you once again to the organizers.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, all the participants, for your query. I think, and I hope that you have already got your answer. And I'm also sorry that we are unable to take more questions due to time constraint. I have already said, and we apologize for that. And thank you, Borua sir. You have nicely presented and replied all the questions to the participants. Now I request Mr. Sarat Chandra Bhuya sir to carry forward the next part of the agenda. Bhuya sir, please unmute yourself. Bhuya sir, please unmute yourself. Yes. No.
Sound hanai, Bhuya sound hanai. Oh, sound hanai Bhuya. Aha, đúng không?
Bhuya sir, we are not getting you.
Not getting your voice. Professor Bhuya.
Hello, sir.
We are not getting your voice. Oh, now that's got. Yeah, continue. Just I got.
Continue, please. Yes, now.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, okay. Continue. Proceed.
Now it is time for vote of thanks. As per agenda, Dr. R. Hassan, Madam of our Anthropology Department of MC College, Borpeta, is to offer the vote of thanks. Now I would like to request Dr. Hassan ma'am to offer vote of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Hassan.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
It gives me immense pleasure to propose this vote of thanks for this webinar. First of all, we thank Dr. Prakash Sharma, Principal, MC College Borpeta, for his inaugural speech and welcome address. Thank you so much, sir, for your enlightening words. And we also offer our sincere gratitude to Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sharma, Principal, Masbat College, for giving his consent to organize this webinar. Thank you very much, sir. We offer our deep sense of gratitude to the resource person of this webinar, Dr. Dipen Bezborua, Professor and Head, Department of Anthropology, Guwahati University. Thank you very much, sir, for your consent to grace this webinar. And thank you for such a wonderful and excellent talk on this webinar. As we have seen from the appreciative messages in the chat box and the interactive session, this webinar was in fact very informative and useful, I believe, to all the participants. We also thank Mr. Sarat Chandra Bhia sir, HOD of PG Department of Anthropology, MC College, Borpeta, and convener of this webinar for organizing this webinar. Thank you, sir, for your efforts. And our sincere thanks to Mr. Jayanta Kolita, convener and HOD of Education Department, Masbat College, for designing this webinar and technical support. A special thanks to Mr. Arunav Chetia and to all the IQAC members of Masbat College for their support throughout this webinar. And a deep sense of gratitude to all the faculty members of the Department of Anthropology, MC College, Borpeta, and to all the other faculty staff of MC College, Borpeta for making this webinar a success. I also offer my heartfelt thanks to all the participants, the research scholars, the faculty members from across the globe for joining in this webinar and making it a success. Thanks to each and every one of you, and thank you and stay safe.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan, ma'am. Esteemed participants, I extend my sincere thanks to you all once again, as we are overwhelmed by your tremendous response towards this webinar. I would like to express my sincere thanks once again to our Honorable Principal Sir of both the colleges, Dr. Pradeep Kumar Sharma Sir and Prakash Sharma Sir, and Joint Convener J. Kolita Sir, IQAC Coordinator Masbat College, and Arunav Chetia, Technical Expert of Dibrugarh University. I am especially thankful to J. Kolita Sir and Chetia of DU for their kind support and active cooperation. I cannot but express my sincere thanks to our resource person once again for his phenomenal and excellent speech. It is earnestly expected that his speech will provide an insight into the world of information and anthropological knowledge in a manner designed to attract and retain the young participants' attention. His speech will certainly strive to develop a thirst to know more and find out more about anthropology and give us the relevant information and steer away from trivia. Thank you, sir, once again. Regarding e-certificate, I should mention one thing. Esteemed participants, e-certificate will be generated on the basis of the details or entries that you have given in the feedback form. So please fill the name and organization very carefully. Every registered participant submitted the feedback form will get a certificate. Of course, it will take time of 6 or 7 days. There is not an iota of doubt about this. My dear esteemed participants, hope very soon we will meet once again in such a platform. Thank you. With these few words, I hand over this mic to our J. Kolita sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Bhia sir, for your nice word. Thank you once again. On behalf of the Masbat College fraternity, I would also like to offer our gratitude and thank you to all the esteemed participants joined from different parts of the globe, and especially the resource persons who has shared his knowledge, wisdoms and experiences with us, enlighten us with his compelling thoughts. So thank you, sir. I hope that we'll meet again in another future discourses. And also I thank the principals of both the colleges to giving us this opportunity to organize this webinar. Thank you, Bhuya sir, to propose me to organize jointly this webinar with you from your with your college. So a special thank you for you and all the esteemed participants. Once again, I thank you. And there is an announcement from my side because there are two international webinar. One is tomorrow. It is on 12/8/20 on the topic relevance of open book examination in higher education during COVID-19 pandemic. So Professor Sinath Borua, former Vice Chancellor of Kekahandik State Open University, he will inaugurate the session, and Dr. Dibojiti Mohanto, Dean, Study Center, Kekahandik State Open University, will deliver his keynote speech, and Professor Jahid Mannan from Bangladesh Open University, who will grace as a resource person. So all the esteemed participants, I request you to join in this webinar to discuss to discuss the vital topic. So another important international webinar will be held on from my department on 14 August. Resource person, one resource person will from America, and another one from Canada, and another one from North Africa. So again, I request you to join in this webinar also. Thank you for participating and giving continuous support to us. Thank you once again. Thank you all. Thank you again. And with these warm words, I officially declared that our today's webinar session